Hi everyone, welcome to Next Big Brand Interviews. And today we have with us one of the pioneers in the digital media platform. We have Mr. Abhishek Mazumdar, founder of the Logical Indian. And on the host side, we have our very own, a very good friend of NBB and supporter since start, Mr. Amit Mishra sir, who is known for his expertise in startups, incubation, and investment. And that today we'll be discussing about how the it a Facebook page which was started and it got converted to a full-fledged media organization. The very first question is ki, how it all started, a logical Indian and everything. How did this like come into in your mind, and how it was like started at the first place?
Sure. So first of all, thank you so much, for allowing me this opportunity to speak to you. And uh, yeah, I mean, how it all started. Yes, we started in essentially in 2014. It was like the last week of 2013, December 2013. So I would say 2014 rather. Uh, I think there's not much of a very inspirational story behind how we started, and it's I think it's pretty much most of us relate because all of us are consumers of news. All of us consume news every day. So just like everyone else, I too have been a avid consumer of news, and it's only the dismal state of Indian media which actually pushed or triggered me to start up with the Logical Indian. And it's so the thing is that me and my co-founder, none of us come from a media or a journalism background or an academic background or an exposure or an experience in media or journalism. So that makes the fact interesting and challenging as well, because so that has been one I think that has been one constant dilemma, that should we or should we not, because we knew nothing about what we are going to do. But that one quote of Gandhiji, which is like be the change you wish to see in the world. So that's something what we thought that, yeah, I mean, that's at least something what we can do, because I'm pretty sure that all of us today, we would relate that the I think the state of media in India even today, as we speak, is still not up to the mark of satisfaction and satisfactory level. So that was the sole thought, and we thought, what could we do? The only thing is we just thought of doing something instead of continuing to crib about it, and then everything else is the journey which followed.
So great, so great. So, like, second question I had ki, I guess social media is a, what you can say, it's a Pandora box. If you
Yeah.
open it, you get a lot of things out of it. Some might be useful, some might be not useful. So, how do you cope up with that? With a lot of negativity circulating around, a lot of fake news, WhatsApp forwards going around. So, being a media platform, how do you cope up with that?
How do we cope up? Yeah, I think for us it is actually very fundamental uh, to our purpose, what we exist, right? And fact checking or fake news, busting fake news. I think that has become more mainstream in the last couple of years, especially after the 2016 U.S. elections, presidential elections. So 2017 onwards, it has become much more mainstream. But for us, because that was something what we had realized when we started in 2014. At that point in time itself, we used to pick a lot of stories where we used to find that no, probably the narrative floating around is incorrect or improper, and we used to do our own due diligence, which is probably now you can term it as fact checking, and then put it forward. So we have been doing it, and much before let's say there has been the standalone fact checking websites existed. Right? We have been doing it as a part of one of our segments, as the fact check segment, which uh, which is till today is one of our most read and visited sections on our website. It is very challenging, and it requires a lot of conviction, a lot of sincerity, to and a lot of passion, especially when you talk about to curb negativity and let's say uh, cover you know you to go behind and to hunt the facts behind anything coming out which is probably propagating a false narrative or a false um, understanding, because the consequences of fake news, it's not just that, hey, this is a wrong news, ये news तो गलत था. It is much more beyond that, right? Because that injects hatred, that injects a lot of things uh, which which can damage the social fabric of a society, right? So it is not just fake news or yes sahi ye galat, right? It's not just that. We A lot of us, even we do not realize that how it's shaping our mind, right? If we do not realize that, this is what something is fake, because we become what we consume, right? What we consume, right? So uh, if it is true for the food we consume, it is also true for the content what we consume. So it is very essential for that we consume the right food, and also the right content, right? Because eventually we become what we consume.
Very well said. That is like it's a very good point that like food, the food you consume and the news you consume, it should be according to you. So okay,
Absolutely.
so social media is something where we have seen in past a brand does a small blunder and they are bashed all across. They are having memes on them. They are getting their a harm on the reputation. So on the social media, I believe the trust is very important of any for any brand, that building that trust with the audience is very important. So what has been your process with that since last 6 years, so that you started as a Facebook page, you turned into a whole organization. So how you maintain that trust with your audience?
Well, that's a wonderful question. To build trust with the audience, because that is something which I take pride in saying, that we have been consistently and continuously focusing on building trust with what we use the term as community members. We do not call them readers, followers, audience, as community members, because uh, yeah, the thought with Logical Indian itself is not just the Logical Indian as a publication to evolve, but all the Indians to evolve as logical Indian citizens. Right. So it is very important that the greater like for the greater purpose, the trust is always established and maintained. Now, to answer your question, how do we maintain that? Or that's a very tedious and a continuous process. And one thing which I think, because I used to work in a BPO before I started up with this, or rather, eventually, even when we started up with this, like Logical Indian was my side hustle, with me working in a call center as a call center agent. So I learned a lot from my call center experiences of customer service. That how right how it has, like, for 4.5 years I have worked in call centers, and there, that learning, that the importance of establishing trust with the audience, with your audience, and how it actually translates to the reputation and the basically to your, you can call it your brand recall or your brand equity, and that's how it translates, right? So there was a time, and I have been very particular about building listening to our community members since day one. I remember in our early days, there was a time when we had 4 team members. One writing content, researching and writing content. Second one, creating the creatives and featured images and videos, and the other two responding to emails and messages, right? So 4 team members with 50% focus on your product and 50% focus on your building the community and listening, and which translates to trust, right? So probably for that reason, and those like our community members from our early days, they would certainly recall. Uh, I must accept the fact that now when the number of messages has been like overwhelming, we still have a dedicated a team and resources allocated for that. But it's just that we can't just match up to the volume of messages right at this at this stage. But that has actually built up, because see, it was part our you can say compulsion as well, because uh, you know we did not have a reporter network to source news from. So where else would we source news, right? So that was our primary destination, from where we would actually listen to our community members, and they would eventually suggest us with something they came across or something happened with them. That was our primary source of finding out issues which matter, because for us it has always been what we have essentially believed since inception is, not everything which is served to you in the name of news is news, right? It is just because it's a trend to be to trend to run a 24/7 channel, and since you are running a 24/7 news channel, you have to consider probably anything and everything as news which comes across, which is really not the case, right? So if you just put logic as a filter to see which news you should consume, or you should produce, then probably 50% of your news actually just is it's filtered out, right? If you just see that one lens of logic as a filter. So that's how I think the two aspects. One is continuous interaction with the community members, be it on comments, be it on messages, listening to them, which gave the community members an essence that, hey, it's different from any other so-called news platform, because there is no engagement, right? All other traditional media publications, digital media publications, they used their social media handles the way they use their electronic medium or print medium, right? Only a one-way communication, right? So print is a one-way communication and television is a one-way communication, and but social media allows you an opportunity to communicate instantly in real time from both the ends. So we leveraged that a lot, and that has built the trust. Number one, and number two, your trust gets built. We all know that it's you cannot just acquire or build trust in a day. It builds over a period of time when people observe you. So those who have observed us from the last 6 years, and they must have seen that the kind of content we cover, the way we portray, and that reflects. We have certainly moved up, and a lot of challenges in between. That also, your readers and community members, they observe, understand, and yeah, I think that's it.
So that's a
Right.
very detailed answer. Yes, yes.
So Abhishek, I think we got to know more about why you started Logical Indian in the history behind it. But I think our viewers would also like to understand Abhishek Mazumdar, right? The guy, the person behind this entire idea. So you talked about your journey, as a call center, working in a call center for 4.5 years. Uh, what are the key learnings from your that experience? You kind of you can resonate that yes, that actually made Logical Indian today we are, because I think the initial days it's more to do with the founder than the idea, right? The founders drive the idea and then takes a shape to the next level, right? So what are the key things which you learned? And I think it is because I also started my journey with call centers, 10, 15 years back, 15,
Wow,
16 years
I
back,
tried.
right? So it is important that was it the listening skills, right? Was it because we are not looking at them, and you transferred your journey from somebody who was just listening to people, then creating a visual platform where people are actually looking at and reading stuff, right? So how was that journey?
Yeah, sure. I mean, me as an individual, as a person, and my learnings uh, uh, from my past experience, I think a few key takeaways would be, uh, that's, as I had already mentioned, that uh, the the importance of, because when you work in a call center, essentially you are reduced to processes, right? And you actually get an opportunity to work for multiple processes, which is eventually multiple companies, right?
Yes.
You are representatives of multiple companies in the name of multiple processes and teams, right? So that is a wonderful experience to know that, what the customers of that particular brand think about that brand, right? While eventually you are just representing that brand, as a outsourced team member overseas in India. But it's interesting to know that, what people think. And so one thing which made me all which I was always curious about working in call centers was, that, what makes someone, like a brand, or what makes a good satisfied customer, and what makes a dissatisfied customer, right? So that's something which I always have been keen, and I'm still learning on that fact. So uh, when I started up with the Logical Indian, one thing which I have always been particular about the satisfaction of readers, what your readers feel, what your community members feel, right? Because eventually your readers, your community members, your audience, your customers, uh, they are everything, right? And internally we say that, we report to you. So that's it, right? So we report to our readers, and no one else. So it's very important to know, learn, and constantly know, learn, and feel that what they feel. So that is I think one thing which I would certainly say that I have carried forward from my work experience in call centers. And also quite a few observations from a leadership standpoint, which which I probably, when I, as a team member and also as a team leader, both the experiences what I could have, the things which I always used to feel that, why does this thing even exist in a company? This just makes me feel not go to the office, right? So those are the aspects, because that has helped me to make sure that I constantly observe and eliminate such elements from my workplace, from my organization, which doesn't which no one would like to have, right? So that's the reason when on and off when I have conversations with young professionals, or those who are usually in a dilemma that I have a job offer, but I'm also starting up as a side hustle. Should I work or should I just go full time? My advice has always been to at least work for a year or for a two, to understand, because you learn a lot just by observing, no matter where you are working, right? So though you learn a lot, right? And that will eventually help you in your startup, right? When you start up, that will help you avoid a lot of mistakes, because you already know, okay, this is a structure, okay, ये काम करने के लिए ये बंदा होता है, right? So those are the things you already know, and that helps you structure your organization, make your startup more efficient, and stuffs like that. So that's something. And I think one of the learnings as an individual, what I reflect upon myself, which is probably the one which I've observed, and I think that this is probably true for most of the founders as well, is that as a founder, you are actually, it is very natural for you to be passionate about your idea, because as a founder, you want to see your idea transform into a product, right?
Right.
Uh, so it is very natural for you to just focus on your product in your early days, just focus on your product and
Mm.
nothing else, right? Because that will come very naturally to you, because that's your idea, and you're just working day and night to transform your idea into a product. But when you talk about a company, there are two facets of a company. Just like two facets of a coin, there are two facets of a company. Uh, you know, uh, One facet is your product, which your consumers see, which your audience, which is your consumer facing, audience facing, public facing. And the other facet of your company is the organization which builds the product, right? So what I have learned, when I introspect and retrospect, that in my early years, I could not, even though I wanted, I was slightly aware, not that consciously aware to the extent I am today. The focus of the organization is equally important, right? So both the facets require equal attention as a founder. So a lot of founders probably end up making that mistake of just focusing on the product, and eventually that the organization, your team requires your attention, and you fail to provide that required attention, and eventually you just shatter, right? Because you're nothing without your team, right? Your team builds the product, right? So that is a which is, I think, you can blame the founders, but I would want that. I see this as very natural as a human, because no one is passionate about, oh, you know what, I'll make a company with with this process and with this department and with this. No, right? So you are passionate about your product, and you are really bothered about the allied support functions which are required to sustain your product, right? You hate that. But yes, that is a challenge which you should learn to overcome, and you just cannot hate, "यार यार, ये सब मुझे नहीं करना, ये तू देख ले." You cannot do that, right? And because you will pay a huge price for that if at all you're doing it. So that's a learning as an individual.
Interesting. I think that the only thing I can relate to is, probably you need to become a Sherlock Holmes. Be very open, observation skills. Look at details, listen to what is being said and what is not being said, and have an experience. That is very important, because I think I totally agree. A lot of new startups which are coming in, right? They look at creativity of the idea, and they only dependent on their own intelligence, that they can code. But when you bring in people, you also bring in a lot of chaos in
Yes.
internally, which
Yes.
makes it interesting as well as complicated at the same time, to solve. Right. So you talked about this dilemma which a lot of young professionals coming to you, and talking about their career opportunities. And I remember that you also posted something a month back about the same thing, and I think you got a lot of limelight around it.
Yeah.
What pushed you to put that post out, of helping young professionals? What was your trigger point there?
Oh, okay. That's great. Actually, you know what? The way it happened was, when the pandemic hit, late March, early April. I actually started receiving a lot of messages on LinkedIn, from young professionals saying, Abhishek, if there's any lead or any recommendations you can help me out with. I'm looking for a job and all. So initially I thought, okay, theek hai, it's an impact which has been happened, and then it shot, right. I was actually receiving around 70, 80 DMs on LinkedIn every day. So because that was the time when actually the company started laying off and the pay cuts started happening, and a lot of young professionals started feeling anxious about the future and everything else. So I just couldn't catch up to the number of DMs I was receiving over that. So I made a post on LinkedIn saying, you know what, and this is something, it's not just that point which had triggered. This is something which I had always felt, and I keep coaching my team, or let's say I keep coaching my team on, basically I try to draw their attention towards these aspects and these elements, and I know that this is true with most of the young professionals joining startups, joining workforce. When things are happy, when things are green, we really do not pay much attention to things, right? No one could have thought, right, that, oh, there would come a time where, oh, everything is going good and what worse could go, and suddenly a lot of us are losing jobs, and things are turning upside down. uh, so when things are green, we take a lot of things for granted, right? We see, हाँ
Right.
ठीक है ना यार, I'll work here, फिर ठीक है, and then फिर I'll get job offers, फिर यहाँ से वहाँ चले जाएंगे and all, right? Very casual in our approach, very casual in our approach. Uh, but now this is the time, right, when you started feeling, oh shit, what did I lack? How can I lose my job? I never thought I'd lose my job. I have been a exceptional performer in my college, and then I was placed, campus placed and everything. How could this happen to me? So the lens, the perspective is, so the post which I had made was on the lines that, did you ever observe that, when a company announces a layoff, right? At any time, not necessarily during this pandemic, when a company announces layoff, not the entire workforce is laid off, right? Not that 100% of the workforce is never laid off, right? And it's in most of the cases, it is also true that, not any department is also not shut 100%, right? Few workforces are actually retained, right? Few workforce are certainly retained. So then that was my question to, I mean, just on the post, that did you ever spare a thought on this, on this point, that what it takes to be in a company's retention list and not in a layoff list, what it takes, right? So when a company is laying you off, how can you know that, probably you would be, because the company is not laying off 100% of its workforce, because it has to revive, it has to, bounce back, right? So are you those, are you one among those assets in the workforce, upon whom your company can bank on, can rely, I need this guy, I need this girl, and I need this person in my team, because, and only then we can revive early, right? So any employer, so that's actually, that is actually the, employer employee gap, which a lot of employers, they do not take that time, take that effort, take that patience, to educate their employees, right? And they're like, oh, okay, they just, you know employees will come and employees will go. So that's for, in our organization, this has, uh, cognizance of employees has always been a priority, and that I thought I'll just, take it to LinkedIn, and I just made a post, and that, with that, after that, a lot of traction, a lot of messages started pouring in. I went with, initially I went on one-on-one calls, and then group calls, Google Meet, Zoom calls, talking to a lot of professionals, those, and then, youngsters, trying to, offer them some perspective, right? That what you should do and how you can do. And I'm still continuing with it, and I'm liking it a lot, because, I never realized that in an individual capacity I'll be able to offer, even what I see that, even, for me, what is just a 1 minute of advice or a 1 minute of a direction, but that affirmation or validation what they get, that's immense. And that, that kind of, I just do it because, that makes me happy. So, it so happened that it caught the attention of LinkedIn, and, the best thing what happened was, LinkedIn just approached me to, feature me in one of their ads, which was around this, around the same lines. And, yeah, they just featured me on an ad, and that ad ran on, television, OTT platforms, and, all across internet everywhere. So when it ran, it was like, for that 1 week, that was again, obviously overwhelmed with messages, but at the same time, that was, a sense of accomplishment, that, oh, so many people are knowing you, for the right reasons. So that was great. That was great. So that's what happened.
Nice, nice. So I think this is the best time where we can probably support each other, right?
Absolutely.
And the more I'm hearing you, I think you're a perfect example of a conscious leader who is not only trying to build his business but also trying to contribute back and give back to the society. Um, have you seen the change? The way you look at your team also. Is there has this been capsulated there? Absorbed, and have you seen that change in the team also? That वो लोग भी ऐसा कुछ करना चाह रहे कर रहे हैं?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. See, for the team, I would say that anyway, it had been my conscious effort to groom my team managers, and then cascaded within the organization.
Mhm.
But especially during this time, as you rightly said, it matters a lot that as a leader, these are your testing times, or let's say these are your defining times, right? Your leadership abilities gets defined by how empathetic are you towards your team, towards your employees, and towards the workforce during these times, right? Because as I said, right, when everything is fine, and then everything is fine, right? But ensuring that things are fine at this time, distinguishes probably between a good leader and a great leader. That how you do it, right? And it's not just about being the team and all, because uh, you know I strongly believe that as a leader, it is very essential and very important for you to be empathetic. If you aren't empathetic, and if you lack empathy as a leader, then I don't know, right? I'm not sure, because that is not something which I could ever relate to. That how can you not be empathetic? Yes, you need to be very pragmatic, and you have to be very practical, because you have a lot of other responsibilities to make sure, because you have numbers to prove, and you have a lot of other things to ensure that your workforce is sustaining, and your workforce is happy. So it cannot just be always on, or always great for others. But so I think that as far as our team is concerned, at this point, from our end, like, we have tried our best. Our leadership team has tried our best to make sure that our employees are well taken care of, and especially when this is the time when we are not able to, uh, you know, yeah, I think work from home is fun if it is one week's work from home. Work from home is really not fun if it is for months. I don't know, like, I think, like, it's not just me. It's really not fun, right? For a week it's great, but for months it's pathetic. And and also, when there's a chances of cabin fever catching you because you're just confined, and a lot of things. So we actually conducted a bunch of fun activities, which actually, employee engagement sessions, or fun activities, which was a part of our schedule at office. But now, when things were online, even our team were skeptical that, oh, how can we conduct that now? But I'm happy that we are able to continue it even now, because it is much more required now than it was during the normal circumstances. Because then, at least, oh, you have your colleagues, you go out, you hang around with them, break, work, and come back to home. Then that's great. But now, when you're confined, you really want to meet your colleagues and hang around, and you cannot do that. So that element of fun is really important, and we are at least trying to maintain that, because mental well-being is something which is essential, very essential at this point in time, to take care. And on top of that, I think one of the most fundamental aspects, what would be that, no doubt in saying that, uh, our business has also been impacted very severely with, due to the pandemic. But till date, as we speak, uh, we are able to ensure that the financial implication of the recession, we try to protect our majority of the workforce from getting impacted due to this. So as a result, in fact, our 90% of the workforce, it's not that key, it's not just we have not laid off any employees. At the same time, we have ensured that 90% of our workforce, they have not gone through any pay cuts as well. So that's the best we are trying. But yes, there is a lot of other responsibilities which are yet required to be shouldered. uh,
Right. Right. So I think, the more I'm hearing, I think this is, you and your organization are, I think the examples which we should take to talk about the things which should be done right. Uh, these are testing times for businesses where they're looking at that they're actually looking at revenue sources, right? So as a founder who is known for his business ethics, and as a brand which is known for business ethics, how difficult it is to be standing as differentiator for most of the mainstream media, right, which are known for pushing certain agendas, right, and not looking at their audience, or not being empathetic to the real value which a news channel or a media channel should bring in, right?
Mhm.
Uh, how and why you have looked at that?
So, what's your question? Your question is, how do you distinguish,
Saved,
or how difficult?
how have you saved yourself,
Okay,
by not deviating from the real path of being a
okay,
not a left wing or right wing media channel.
yeah,
You are a neutral media channel,
mhm,
from the
yeah,
outset.
yeah,
How has been the journey for the last 6 years, right? And especially in these days, you probably
absolutely.
will be getting offers. A lot of offers that हमारे लिए branding कर दो, right? And
I know,
we
I know.
right.
I know.
So, right. So if you can talk about your journey, and then especially the last 5 6 months.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sure. I totally relate to it, and I must say that I mean, this is such a see. As an individual, I have always been up for challenges. Uh, so I always find myself ki, okay, it's a challenge. Let's go for it. But I'm telling you that this is quite challenging. So which certainly means that this is actually very challenging, because I found it really challenging to make sure, because see, what you aspire of, what you aspire of is on your mind. The real challenge is when your product is out, right? What you have envisioned, right? if if your vision, I mean, if your product is not reflecting your vision, then yeah, I mean, nothing can frustrate you more than that as an entrepreneur, right?
Right.
So you envision something, you want to do this, great, oh, that's a great idea, you should be neutral, you should be this and that and all this, that's a great thought, right? But the question is, so that was what you want to do, but the thing is, how will you maintain it, how will you achieve it? So when you get into the how, there are layers and layers, and you realize, oh shit, you have to deal with this, oh shit, you have to deal with that. So uh, and I always say this, that, but I've, again, one of the takeaways from my journey or my learning is that who you are and how you are perceived,
Hmm.
they are two different things. They are two different entities, right? And the
Right.
distance between how you are perceived and who you are is called conscious effort. You require a conscious effort to ensure that who you think you are is also how you are coming across, right?
Right.
So in this context, it's like, who you are as in what you want your product to be. But then when you realize that, no, at the end it's not showing up, because this is the real challenge. And for us, it has been quite challenging also, because number one, first generation entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurship on its own is like, is an area to deal with, right? When you are setting up your first company, and there's no one in your family tree who is even close to entrepreneurship or business. It gets so difficult to learn from anyone, and you are not born and brought up in an ecosystem looking at friends, or brothers or uncles running their own businesses. When you are not, then it becomes so difficult, because you do not know anyone, right? Who would you reach out? Someone, you message someone on LinkedIn or Facebook, they have their own work, they would not they have no time to help you out in that context, right? So if your ecosystem is not, so it's really difficult. So number one is entrepreneurship on its own is challenging, and second, media as an industry, right? So I knew nothing about this industry 5 years back or 6 years back, nothing, right? So you're entering into an industry, right, which you have no knowledge about, right? So you're learning every day and you're implementing every day. You're learning new aspects. Oh, this is how it works. Oh, okay, then we should do this, right? So when you have no background, it becomes much more difficult, and especially specific to the context, that how do you make sure that you're aligned to the purpose, because the sole purpose of our existence is to build a credible, trustworthy, and a non-partisan source of information,
Right.
non-partisan media outlet, right? Where you can just, because it's the logical Indian is built for people like me and you, right? We have no business aligning ourselves with anyone, right? As long as you're solving purpose, it's just that provide the information. So I draw an analogy to help my team understand at times. The analogy is, let's say, there are medicines, right? There are, so there are, or let's say you call it, so if you if you can think of, let's say, the approach of medical sciences, if you can think of approaches like Ayurveda, your allopathy, and let's say homeopathy, right? uh, Three different ideologies, isn't it? Three different ideologies, right? And no three ideologies probably vouch each other or are happy with each other, right? One ideology is popular over the other. Someone believes, that ideology is great. Someone else believes, no, that ideology is great. But as a consumer, or as a sick person, right, who requires a treatment, right, what do you need, right? You are okay with, भाई, जो मेरा बीमारी ठीक कर दे यार, right? That's it, right? Because see, if no one from your family is an allopathic doctor, or is in the field of allopathy, then you have no reason or no obligation towards allopathy. You will be like, yeah, no, yaar, if Ayurveda cures me, I'm okay with Ayurveda. If homeopathy cures me, I'm okay with homeopathy, right? If allopathy cures me without any side effects, whatever it is claimed, I'm okay with that, right? So as a consumer, that's the analogy, right? That you are okay. Why do you have to be partisan? Why do you have to align yourself? No, no, no. You know what? This is what. This is what. No. If it solves your purpose, so in a country's context, that's what it is, right? You are a citizen, right? What is beneficial to your country? What is beneficial to your countrymen? What is beneficial to humanity, humans at large? That's it. I mean, those are the things. So that's something to the challenge is, how do you maintain, how do you ensure, right? So one of the elements, see, there are external elements which is not in your hand, right? And you cannot just be bothered, because there are external elements which you have to deal with, and that's a fight. That's what you have signed up for. When you enter the media business, you have signed up for it. So you just cannot keep complaining ki ye challenge hai, wo challenge hai. That's you have signed up for. But one thing which you can do, is, which is very simple, right? Which is very simple, is to look at any story, to look at any news, when you're, as a reporter, as a journalist, when you're covering a story, right? To look at any news, any story, uh, absolutely on a case by case basis, right? So when you say case by case basis, there are no prejudices attached to any case or any story. Now, this is slightly difficult, but it is not at all difficult if you are conscious about the fact that, hey, I know that, okay, this story is about this person, and this person has an image. But when you investigate the story, you just have to do away with all the prejudices or all the history about that person. You just do away with that, just for the sake,
Right.
temporarily, hypothetically, just do away with that. Because if you do not do it, right, it's not that you will not be able to know. The point is, your mind will not allow you to investigate the story itself. Forget about writing it in an impartial way. As a journalist, your mind will not even allow you to investigate कि अच्छा ये भी angle हो सकता है क्या? Because your prejudices, right? So that's your bias and prejudices. You just have to do away with it, even if you are for or against whatever. Because all of us are humans, all of us are social beings. So we know that we carry social tags, and all those. So I am born and brought up in Arunachal Pradesh. So quite naturally, so I have I grew up just listening to this whine that Northeast को media में जगह नहीं मिलता. There's no space for Northeast in the mainstream media. So it's quite natural for me now that when I have my abilities to some extent, right, then I would just fill it with anything and everything from the Northeast, right? Now that's what the my consciousness comes in, right? That's when, because I would be very naturally biased and I would not even know that I'm biased, right?
True,
So if
true.
any small news from the Northeast comes up, I would feel like, hey, no, 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 this is a very important news. This is a worthy news. So my Abhishek as an individual would want to override the the editor's decision or the editorial call. But there's where I need to stop myself, right? The lenses are true for all the stories, right? The criteria, the parameters, all the lenses through which we select a story or reject a story are same for all the stories. So it's just, that's the small thing, and probably that's the only thing which you can do as a journalist, as a media entrepreneur who aspire to do honest journalism and aspire to build a platform which is non-partisan. It's none of your business, right? Which is non-partisan, because people really want a destination where they can read about a story without the tension कि अरे यार इसने लिखा है तो वैसा होगा, right? I cannot trust that outlet because that's the point. There's no point of your existence if that's the point, right? That's what distinguishes a brand from a non-brand. When you walk up to a Nike store or when you walk up to an Adidas store, right? The premium price you want to pay for that shoe, right? Certainly the prices you feel like, oh yeah, this is way too high. You know what, that extra cost, right? When someone tells you that, hey, why are you buying this shoe for 5,000 bucks? I can get you the same shoe in Palika for XYZ, or I can get you that for anywhere, right? Outside on the street market for probably 10% of the cost, right? The only reason you allow yourself to pay that is, if you're not just fancy about your brands and all, then probably any rational mind would actually pay for it, because that's the price of peace of mind. Because you know that I'm paying that extra price because I know that I can trust on this product, and this product will stick with me for at least 3-4 years or 4-5 years or whatever, while the other product will not, right? So
Right.
that's what distinguishes a brand. So it's really required for a media brand to always maintain, to be the go-to destination, because people are busy at their own work. They really want a destination where they can go read about it without the tension that, I don't know, they have written whether it would be this or whether it would be that, right? So that's
Right. I this brings in another very important point, which is actually happening a lot these days. Is because of the power of social media. Everybody is an executor, right? Everybody is a judge today. I read something and I'll say, if I read something in X platform, uh, I would say, okay, this person probably have done X, Y, Z, right? So the elections are perfect examples in India, in US, and in a lot of other places where we took a side because the news which are coming in was one-sided, right?
exactly.
Uh, there is this famous Bollywood actor death case, which where people are just portraying a certain individual. But everybody is talking about that individual specifically. How do you think people should look at that? Because there is a lot of fake news which is coming in. There is a lot of manipulated news which is coming out, right? I'm sure the logical Indian is taking a neutral stance. But what is your message for the young audience which is not looking at news today? Right? We have left looking at TV news or reading newspapers. News is coming through TikTok. News is coming through Facebook. News is coming from all the channels which are not supposed to be news channels. Uh, how do we one look at that?
Yeah, that's a wonderful question, and I'm glad that, I mean, that's a very, very, very close and a very required observation what you had just mentioned. This is actually the pitfalls of social media, or pitfalls of uh, media being democratic, right, where anyone and everyone can produce news. Why we see the advent of fake news now? Because it's not that it's now. It has already been it has always existed, but it existed in a more formalized way where you cannot identify if the news is if the news was fake. Now, yeah, since it is barely any cost to produce news, uh, you know, now people, those who are those who probably aligned to different thought processes, they're taking advantages, or rather they're misusing and abusing the democratization. But you know what, the way I see it is, it will take some time. Yes, it is problematic, I understand that, and it can only happen, it can only, I mean, this, you can only fix the problem if you do not look at producers of news, the media publications and all, in an isolated manner, or the consumers of news. And if you look at the ecosystem, if you look at the ecosystem, where probably there are three players in the ecosystem. Number one is the producers of news, like people like us, media platforms, producers of news. Number two, consumers of news, people like all of us, those who consume news every day. And then the third player in the ecosystem is the medium, right? Your Facebook, Twitter, channel, whatever it is, right? Any or your own website or whatever, or internet as such. So if you look at the ecosystem, uh, for for anything to fix, the ecosystem needs to be fixed. If it is
It's
in
really
any
wrong.
ecosystem, if one of the stakeholders in an ecosystem is doing its own part, and the others are not, you will still see a compromised ecosystem, right? And for that to allow, it will require some time, but it will only happen with the conscious collaboration and participation of all the three stakeholders in the ecosystem. Now,
Right.
it is relatively easy to collaborate between the first and the third stakeholder in the ecosystem, which is the producers of the news, because they are a handful, right? 100, 500, 1000, whatever. And the medium is much more less, right? The main WhatsApp, Facebook, Twitter, let's say 10 major platforms, right?
Hmm.
So the collaboration can happen. Now, so that's number one, which is very much required. A very conscious collaboration and participation between the news platforms, and which is like the first stakeholder, and the third stakeholder, which is the medium. And if these two gets fixed, then at least we can be rest assured that 2/3 is fixed, and then it comes on the part of the consumers of news. Now, one of the aspects is that what happens when you the point is that without the willingness of the media platforms, I'm like the mediums that like Facebook, Twitter, and social media platforms and apps, let's say, without conscious willingness of these platforms, it is impossible at this age, at this time. So, and it only has to be a conscious effort. See, before 2016, it's not that 2016 was the first time when the world got to know ki, oh, a fake news has its impact. It's not like that. It's just that these media giants, the social media platforms, they चल रहा है चलने दो वाली बात, right? कि it's let it go, it's okay, it's no problem, right? But when it hit hard, now you see there are dedicated grants for fighting, fake news, fighting against fake news. There are teams set up. Google has set up its team. Facebook has set up its team, right? And on a policy level, they're making changes, right? So if this can happen now, this could have happened before anything, before 2016 also, isn't it? So you cannot do it. It's the leadership call. We can only pray that the conscience of the leaders of Facebook and Google, what matters to them, right? Because irrespective of their effort, they will anyway make money. They're giants now. So if making money is the only is the ultimate goal, then obviously we will it will take us some more time probably to see a very robust ecosystem. But it's just a matter of that now things are improving drastically, right? Because there are dedicated funds allocated by especially Facebook and Google for fighting against fake news, and hence you see the independent fact checkers popping up, and there's a conscious effort, or there is awareness for that matter. Now, when I talk, these are the this is what I mentioned about the two stakeholders. Now, coming on the third stakeholder, what I actually feel that the way we see it. So, as the on behalf of the Logical Indian, what we consciously do, is we have been conducting workshops around media literacy and fake news, right? Fighting fake news across, right? It's just that due to the pandemic, we couldn't, continue any of our offline ones, and now we had to resort to online ones. But starting from schools in remote villages to institutes like IITs and IIMs, to let's say few corporates also. What we did, it's absolutely our self-funded initiative, which what we felt responsible towards this ecosystem, towards news. We formulated this workshop. We prepared our own module. We designed this workshop framework, and we engaged our own resources and talents to just impart this workshops on media literacy and fighting fake news. Now, why? Because this is what we have believed, and I personally strongly believe that what's screwed up at this point in time, right? What's not right with the fact checkers and fake news, like fact checker versus fake news ecosystem right now is there are a couple of problems. I'll tell you the major problem first. See what happens. Let's say today a fake news had entered your WhatsApp family group or your personal message, right? You consume that news and you believe in it. Okay? You consume it, you believe it, oh, okay, and you do not realize even if it's fake. What happens a couple of days later? Now there are independent fact checkers there, right? A couple of days later, or let's say the following day itself or the same day itself, this particular fake news, which is widely spread and a lot of people have believed, it catches the attention of these independent fact checkers. Okay, now what do? They pick that news, they debunk that news, they investigate that news and come up with the facts, and then they post an article saying, this WhatsApp forward which you came across was false, for an example, right? Now, the ecosystem, as you rightly said, that we have stopped watching television. So when you watch television, you have a preferred channel, right? You have preferred show. When you watch television, that, I like this show. Every day you watch that show. Or if there is a news channel, every day you watch the same channel, most likely. But since now we have stopped watching television, now what happens that when this standalone fact checker fact checks that fake news, there is no assurance that the fact check of the fake news will actually hit your inbox or hit your timeline or hit your feed, isn't it? There is no assurance, which means you still continue to believe that was true, right? While the fact checkers, they take pride, hey, we have fact checked this, and Google and Facebook probably mindlessly pushing their funds, fact check, because now the government is grabbing them by their collars that, hey, what are your initiatives against fighting fake news? So they have to report, right, what they are doing. So that's what. But is it actually solving the purpose, right? Because there's no assurance. Any fact checking website cannot. There is no mechanism to ensure that 10 people, those who were infected with the fake news yesterday, my fact check of that fake news will actually, as a medicine, I will be able to give this medicine to those infected with the fact check. No. So the infected patients still remain, and your medicine probably, if there are 10 infected patients with that particular fake news, probably your medicine, which is the fact check, your pill, reaches to two of them, and also a few those who have not even come across that fake news, but they come across the fact check of the fake news, right? But with no assurance that everyone who was infected with that particular fake news, the fact check of it has actually gone there. So hence what we say that like our rationale behind structuring this media literacy workshops was that what we strongly believe that, you know what, uh, the if you draw this, if you look at this analogy, or if you look at this, that if the fake news is the disease, if the
Hmm.
fake news is the disease, and if the fact checkers are the medicines, right, then the need of the hour is to create a vaccine to make the to make the generation immune to fake news. That's the only way, which is the ultimate way, right? Yeah. So this is what, with like, it has been 2 years since we have been running this self-funded workshops across many colleges and workshops, because the only way is to make you as a consumer of news, the second stakeholder in the ecosystem, you as a consumer of news, only when you become immune to fake news. If there is a vaccine and you are in, how can we make you immune? By letting you know what are the types and what should you do, what should you not, right? And when you are aware, then what will happen, that particular fake news which has hit your inbox, there are 90% chances that you would not believe it. So it's just, if you do not believe on it, so it doesn't matter if it had hit your inbox or not, right? It has not hit your mind. You will not forward it. If you do not believe in it, you will not forward it, right? Or at least you can take a conscious call that, let me understand the facts behind it. So the sole purpose of the fake news peddlers gets defeated if you stop believing in it. If we can make you aware through our workshops that how to, right, without no, because किसी के पास भी टाइम नहीं है वो इमेज लेके वो गूगल इमेज सर्च एंड दिस एंड दो, नो भाई, देयर आर लाइफ में बहुत प्रॉब्लम है, वो फेक न्यूज व्हाट्सएप फॉरवर्ड सही है कि नहीं है पता करने के अलावा, नो वन डज दैट. सो दोस आर लाइक फालतू formulas, right? No one believes, no one has time, right? If you have funds, oh, you want to utilize funds and you want to say annual reports how you have utilized the funds, keep on doing it. That's how people kya kare, like that's the ecosystem we live in. But if you really are here to solve a purpose, just use your brains. How can you solve a purpose, right? It will take time, but I firmly believe that that's the only way and the most effective way to make the consumers of news immune to fake news to whatever extent you can, and then the sole purpose gets defeated, right, of the fake news peddlers of creating fake news. They will stop peddling. यार लोग विश्वास ही नहीं करते, क्या फायदा, मार्केट ही खत्म हो गया हमारा.
No, I think this is so. If I would love to join, one such. If you're doing this online, I would love.
Absolutely. I would love to have you.
We share more. I think we need more such initiatives, because this, as you call this disease, this is already spread to, I think, a lot of the population in India and abroad. This is definitely needed. I think beyond COVID-19, this is a bigger disease which
Yeah.
also needs,
Needs a vaccine.
definitely needs a vaccine.
Yeah. So we are fighting for 2 vaccines now.
So that was, I really agree to the last point you made, that if there are like 10 people getting affected, because the guys who are believing in the news on WhatsApp, they really don't go to websites like Logical Indian or All Check. They really don't go, because the family groups पे जो message आते हैं, if for example I am reading them, I immediately am like, no, this is a fake news, please don't believe it. But that's just me doing that. Out of 10 people, that's me doing. So they are not the consumer of that fact check. So that's basically beating around the bush ki we are doing this, we are doing that. But you're very right.
We know organizations exist, right? We know कि organizations exist जो इस purpose से exist करते हैं कि अरे इसके लिए फंड निकला है, एक प्रोजेक्ट बनाते हैं, तो फंड निकला है तो प्रोजेक्ट बनाते हैं. ये नहीं कि मेरा प्रोजेक्ट है तो if you can help. So we know that, right? We know कि कैसा चलता है. And it's not just the fake news की बात मैं बिल्कुल नहीं कर रहा हूँ. There are a lot of you know how things work, non-profits और बहुत सारे हैं जिनका पर्पस है कि अच्छा इस चीज के लिए फंड निकला है तो मैं कुछ सोल्यूशन बनाऊं, right? You can keep doing it. That solves both of their purpose, because ultimately the organizations, probably those who are making those grants available, उनका भी पर्पस वही है कि उनको सरकार को रिपोर्ट देना है कि दिस इज आवर इनिशिएटिव, right? So things can only change when the leadership, when the leaders actually feel for it. I'm not going to settle down with any faltu formulas, or just for the sake of doing it I'm not going to do it, right? Either you do it for the sake of solving it or you don't. And that leadership call, वो top down approach नहीं होगा तो कभी चीजें solve नहीं होंगी कहीं.
Right. So I always wanted to ask this question for people who have been into like social media, basically the platforms on social media. So we see a lot of coined terms. I'm not taking the names. We see a lot of coined terms, and every Facebook page, if there is an article, there is a news, there is equal number of hate messages. People commenting, people trolling, people abusing. So as an organization, how do you deal with it? Because since you also have a team, there must be a 23-year-old guy or like handling your social media, and when he's getting abused over there, he's getting affected by it mentally. Why are people abusing me for that? So how do you maintain that sanity in the organization also?
Thank you. It so happened that just last week, I was actually so there's an initiative which was I think it's an initiative which is probably widely now like going on in episodes as well. So in one of those episodes, this is an initiative which is taken by Mission Josh and Sonakshi Sinha. She was actually interviewing few panelists on cyberbullying and harassment, like the way it's shaping up in days. So I was just interacting with Sonakshi last week, and it was exactly the same question, which was for me. That how as a platform, do we maintain and make sure. See, you know what I'll say. There's the same response what I had actually given last week to Sonakshi as well. That it is exactly the same thing. I took the same analogy to help them understand that. Um, Honestly speaking, there is a lot can be done right now because there was like one very eminent lawyer in the panel as well. She was like cyber lawyer, and then she helped us understand that what are the provisions already existing which are already prevailing in the law, and which we can make use of to make sure that this hate and trolling and abusing and bullying and all those things, can be taken to a conclusive end. Uh, it, this is the same analogy what I actually took was if now after the 2016 this thing presidential US presidential elections, if now the brands can actually sorry if now the social media giants they can wake up to creating and dedicating teams and funds to fight this, then don't you think we should really not wait for for such a significant damage caused by cyberbullying or by hatred, and then waking up, right? This requires no brain, it requires just a conscious call, right? So even right now today, social media giants like Facebook and Google, they can set up their teams to fight against cyberbullying and aggressively. I'm not sure if they already have, but I'm pretty sure it's not aggressive at all, right? The way now they are aggressively pushing towards fact check and fake news. If this can happen, why can't it happen for fighting cyberbullying on their own platform, right? On their own platform, there is no one else's platform. It's on their own platform. So it is because on a human scale, it is really impossible to deal with this, and it would actually require a lot of conscious effort, because those hate and trolling, and this is also what I mentioned, that when we started in 2014, I used to be so happy and I used to take so pride looking at the comments, comments on the Logical Indian, because the women participation on our platform, on the comments, the women participation on the comments, that was almost 40 to 50%, like almost 50% on every post, right? And today, I mean not today, it has almost been 2 years already. it has dropped to probably 5% or even less, right? Because if you comment, they will receive a lot of friend requests, or messages, or threats, bullying in the comments itself. Who would want to be a part of that platform? So now this I know that Facebook uh, and Google, if they in case if they are bothered, that not Google but especially Facebook, which owns Instagram and Facebook both, if they're actually bothered about people withdrawing themselves from the platform, if at all that's the data, they should actually think on this dimension, right? You'd really not, right? So if there is a street which, like, on your way from office to home, if you have to pass by a street full of bullies, uh, and threats, you'd want to avoid that street, isn't it? Right? You'd want to take a longer route, or let's say just withdraw yourself from that route, or avoid that route and not take that street, right? It's the same thing. I would not want to be a part of a platform where I get bullied, where I get threatened. There are far better things to do in life, right? So I mean, as a media platform which exists on the mercy of the social media platforms, it is really difficult on our part, because you cannot control, it's so enormous, right? It can be dealt through machine learning and artificial intelligence and conscious effort, which, to some extent, because you know what, when you actually take an effort, and there are actually examples which has happened, that, let's say someone commented or threatened or bullied or something, and if you really take that pain to take that individual to a conclusive end and get threatened, you know what, that one example will actually stop 200 more bullies from repeating the same thing, right? So it is doable, but it's just that, you know there is so lack of awareness, that people do not know. Those who bully, they do not know. Those who, like, the hatred and cyber trolling and all those things, those who do, they do not know that they are, most of them, they do not know that, there's already law which can actually which prohibits them from doing it. And those who get bullied, in fact, they are also probably not aware to an extent that they can actually do something about it. But when we do it, but it is certainly possible. I mean, over a period of time, I'm pretty sure that things will change, right? So we have seen things evolving. It's conscious effort from all the stakeholders in the ecosystem. It can certainly be solved.
So true. So it's very important actually to have a safe environment over there also, because ultimately it is affecting the mental health of even the one who are getting bullied, and it's very bad. So,
Absolutely.
like, this session has been very great, and so I'll end it with this question that I think we need, like, we really need, like me, Mishra sir also, and this was his idea only. We both, like, this is a collective thing. We believe that we need more organizations like TLI, and so there are, and when you look around on social media, there are actually people who want to bring a change, who are starting out. A few are in college, some are out of college. So what is your message for those people, for those independent journalists and such pages on Facebook and other social media also?
Well, great. I think so. I'd probably throw some light on categorically on aspiring media professionals or media entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in general. Uh, so I think for entrepreneurs in general, it would certainly be that uh, just go for it. You don't lose anything. Like, if you really believe in something, if you see, don't go for anything just for the sake of it's cool to be an entrepreneur, it's cool to start up, right? uh, I- if you're really not convinced about a product or a solution, then probably don't go for it. uh, but even if you go for it, uh, the point is that even if you lose, you learn a lot. And see, if you run a startup for a year and a two, and you fail, right? And then you go out and, to work somewhere, right? As an employer, I know that I would certainly prefer that individual over someone who has not started up, who do not know what it takes. Because it's so simple. When you start up, when you try to do something on your own, uh, you learn so many things. Your understanding evolves, your understanding develops, right? And you make such a great employee when you join an organization. You make a great employee, right? So even if that's the point, right? So I mean, you're not literally not losing anything. I can tell you as an employer that if there are two CVs for the same position with everything, just being replicating or reciprocating each other, except the fact that one resume contains that, oh, I started up, ran this startup for 2 years with 7 8 employees or 10 12 employees, made this much of revenue, and then failed, right? I would really not want to look at the rest of your achievements. I would really not want to look at that, right? Because you know what, skills can be acquired. Any point in time, skills can be acquired. Will cannot. I cannot train you to have a will. I can train you to have a skill, right? So if you start up, that shows your will and that understanding. That's it. The very same reason why, when people, that when people join the military and they join the army, and then if there is an ex-army man, or ex-military, ex-army woman, then they always have an added, leverage in their professional career when they take a voluntary retirement. And why, right? It's the same thing. Because so that's one thing which I would say, that please go for it. Please go for it. And from my end, on an individual level, I actually try to, because one thing which I had faced a lot, while starting up and also during my college days, I really wanted to, talk to someone, especially when you do not have any strong network who can guide you, or at least not guide you, but at least answer few of your questions, which would actually help you take a decision, right? That's a really difficult phase, right? I know that I used to write emails, and just to a lot of random people, looking at their website, yeah, LinkedIn and all those. At that point in time, I didn't use it, but so that's something which I feel, and I personally, on my level, I try to be available to any professional, those who want to start up and have some questions. Should I or should I not? I am no gyani in any startups and anything, but at least with whatever experience, if I can at least answer, why, then I think it can help them. So that's on an entrepreneurship level in general. And for aspiring, media entrepreneurs or journalists, I think this is something which I have been repeatedly telling in, almost on all the forums, that no matter wherever you are, if you are in the profession of media, you know, you in this discussion we had already discussed that how can you ensure that uh, your reporting lenses your reporting lenses are are justified, are true, and are valid, right? Just shed off the prejudice which you carry, right? Whenever you look at a story, look at a news, look at every news on a case by case basis. If a story is assigned to you, if you're taking up a story, and especially if that story is political in nature, because that's where the chances are, right? So just shut off all your biases. Make sure that you are not a victim of your affirmative bias, right? Because those things are tricky, and we are social beings. We are it affects us. So you just need to shed away all those prejudices, and look at every story on a case by case basis. Forget the history, investigate, read, and do your best, right? See, if you are justified to your own self, then it would show up. It would show up, right? See, if you are not justified, that would also show up, right? And especially in these times when we know that technology is actually, technology will take over a lot of jobs, right? And automation and technology will take over a lot of jobs. So as as individuals, as professionals, gone are those days when we could have taken our mistakes or our errors very lightly, right? Every time we commit an error, every time we commit a mistake, we are actually giving a reason for our job to get replaced and automated through technology, right? So that's it. And be very sincere about wherever you're working. I know that this is a very cliche and a very very obvious advice, जो हम लोग बचपन से सुनते आए हैं कि there's no shortcut to hard work and all those things. Um, I literally realized this, that how true this is, that there is really no shortcut. There's really no shortcut, and I think one particular thing which I keep saying to my team here, uh, that, see, I don't mind. I tell my team that I don't mind if you are not if you are not true to your job, if you're not committed to your job. I don't mind, but what I certainly mind is if you're not committed to your profession, right? You might not be satisfied with your job because, okay, your nature of job, your probably your work culture, company, pay scale, reporting manager, a lot of aspects, right? uh, you may not be, right. That depends. That's not in your hand, right. That your employer needs to work on that and make sure that those things happen in a way. So that's okay if you're not committed to your job, but that's certainly not okay if you're not committed to your profession, right? um, because what else will you do, right, if you're not committed about it? You really need to show up as a committed professional, right? No matter where you are, which company you work with, or you need to be very sincere to your profession, uh, and that's probably the ultimate truth.
All right. So it's been a great interview, and thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope
My
like our
pleasure.
readers are our readers are taking a lot of insight from this. And thank you, Amit sir, also for always supporting us. And thank you for
Thank you.
being here today.